While my parcel tongue is not what it should be, Razer has given me the very latest and greatest from their Chamber of Secrets. Good afternoon and welcome to Turbo Tortoise Tech. In front of me is the Basilisk V3. I've always liked the shape. As a preface to this whole review, I really do like ergos. I know that I also use ambidextrous mouse, but ergo is like home in a lot of ways because I used MX518 solidly for like 8 years and had little breaks and stuff in between and had used other more ambidextrous type style mouse, but ergo has always been the most comfortable for me personally. And this, I think, is up for competition at being pretty much one of the best ergo mice ever made, because Razer's not only made like a very nice, appealing looking and feeling product, they've packed it with a feature set that's kind of astronomical and cool. So I'm going to start off from the top of that feature set, being the buttons and the setup. So you've got a 10+1 layout over here with a profiling button on the bottom. I was trying to say both of those words at the same time there. With a profiling button on the bottom that lets you switch between individually stored profiles. It does have hybrid storage like normal with the Razer products. If you don't know what that is, it's basically, it gives you the capacity to store it on your PC and on the device simultaneously. So you can do onboard profiling and stuff on the mouse, which is nice to have. Then on the top, right, let's start off from the left-hand side. There's an extra thumb button all the way at the front here. I was kind of hoping it was going to be like a joystick of some type, but I think that would have probably increased the weight. I will say it is a little bit difficult to reach, and I've got quite long hands. It is nice to have it there. It is just a little bit of a stretch forward for me personally, but if you've got longer than, well, my base to tip is 19 centimeters as a reference point. So if you've got really long, big hands, probably not going to be an issue for you. However, the thumb button positioning is sublime. It's absolutely perfect. They couldn't have put a better spot for this, because with just a small slide back and forth, you can access both of those over there quite nicely. The left click and right click are the optical mechanical kind of switches. Well, it's an optical switch. So it does give a very good feel and quite a nice noise and stuff, and doesn't feel hollow at all. Bounce back is also pretty damn quick for both of them, obviously. And the shape as well for this is probably one of the better parts of this mouse, because they've done those kind of ergo grooves next to it. The comfort and placement of that is pretty good. And on the front right over here, I have to say, something that I found a little bit annoying with the Mamba shape was the front right over here would catch actually on my ring finger on my right hand. So it started to get a little bit annoying after a bit of time, but they've actually flattened it in a way and lengthened it so that the positioning is very, very comfortable on that side. Now the scroll is where a lot of your buttons and effects are going to be coming from, because scroll up is one button, scroll down is one button. Then it has left and right on the scroll and in the normal scroll click as well. So if you're counting, that's 5 functions and buttons, as it were, all programmed into one area. But you can, they call the scroll up and the scroll down a button because you can customize what it does on scroll up or scroll down. Behind that, you'll find a free scroll button, because this has got a free scroll, which is quite nice, or a tactile scroll. And this is working on some sort of electronic switch, because you can change it in the software, which is the first time I've ever seen that. 99% of the time, this is actually a mechanically linked switch. In this instance, it's electronically linked, which is sick. And they've done a little add-on to that called Smart Reel, which is a hybrid mode. So when you are scrolling, it will have tactile until you flick, and then you actually feel the scroll inside the wheel just carry on going. And if you just hold it, after a little while, it will stop. There's no real way to control how far it goes in that Smart Reel mode, but it's kind of nice to have. And if it's something you got used to, maybe in a gaming environment or something like that, for like zooming in and out with scopes or something to that effect, it might be beneficial to you. It could also be beneficial for jumping, like in CS, when you're trying to b-hop or something to that effect. I use scroll up, for instance, for b-hopping and well, for exactly that. Behind that, is your DPI switch. This is where you've got your default profiling on, and it comes out of boxes for 800, 1600, 32, and 64. Very, very default stuff. I personally used it on 400 DPI. That's what I scale up in every game pretty much, because I'm that old that 400 DPI used to be a lot. Speaking of the sensor, 26,000 DPI maximum is kind of disgusting. The only time you're going to use that perhaps is if you've got 4 4K monitors in front of you or 3 4K monitors with a span display. Yeah, then you might need 26,000 DPI. Honestly, you probably need about 8,000 for it to feel quite natural on that environment. So there's plenty of DPI headroom. I'm not sure about jitter or anything like that in the top end. I didn't really have a high resolution monitor or anything like that to test it properly, because when I set it to that, you move like 1 millimeter and your mouse is gone off the screen completely. You have no idea where it is. The tracking performance and feel though was pretty much one for one with what I'm used to. There was absolute sublime as far as like FPS tracking and that sort of stuff goes. Another mate had watched me use it, and he said that it was me that was causing the drops in my left to right pan, and I was like, no, that's just how I run now, because it's playing too much Tarkov. That's just how I shoot, because you're constantly like looking over the top of the gun and then pulling up. So was it the mouse? No, it was me. The performance, I have to give a solid 10 out of 10 of the sensor. It's super, super good. 1-for-1 tracking. Absolutely no jitter or bounce or anything weird. And that was before I actually found the surface calibration and liftoff distance tool, which it has a really good variant of. It's got full support for all the Razer mouse pads, and then you can obviously just add in your own as like unknown. And then you can have tuning for different mouse mats, so you can store all of that in your Razer Synapse profile. And then with the click of a button, you can be attuned for another surface with a different liftoff distance. That's a really nice add-on to have, especially liftoff distance in this day and age. If you're looking to be a pro gamer and it's something you're not considering, you really should be looking at it, because every time you sweep and lift and come back down, it might start tracking when you're coming back down, and then your aim is going to bump in a general direction that is not going to be appealing and not going to hit you that shot. The way the mouse feet and stuff is arranged around the bottom of the mouse is also really good. They've even put a little bit around the sensor hole over here, so to make sure that doesn't catch. I never felt it do any of that. It was super smooth. It was gliding like you can't believe. It is a little bit heavy though. This is about 105 gram mouse if I'm not mistaken. So it is on a little bit on the heavier end, but I'm used to a 90 grams, so the extra 10 to 15 grams didn't really make an impact on me, to be quite honest with you. What did make an impact on me was it is quite a lot narrower than the mouse that I normally use, being the Sensei 10. One big plus it has over the Sensei 10 though is the fact that it's got their ProFlex ultra light weave cable, which can move around like super seamlessly. You don't really need a bungee for this. If it was just a trail off your desk like that, probably be fine with that kind of travel. It's not going to bunch up unnecessarily and get in your way. You don't really feel it all that much, which is quite nice. And like I said, it is a bit of a heavier mouse, so if you're used to that, then this is going to be almost like irrelevant to you. So the performance of the mouse isn't going to matter, but what about the shape and this extended piece out the side over here and this extremely ergo design? Well, let me give you some use case scenarios, and then you can kind of make a decision on that for yourself. So on the farthest right over here, we have El Clasico MX518. This one is actually Franken mouse. It's built from 3 different variants, including an original MX518 base, as you can see by the feet and the positioning of the feet over here. This is l'original, okay? It was the first of the first, and honestly, when your feet and your contact surface area is that small, it does tend to catch over time. But I think you can see some design cues here based on the shape. From there, Logitech evolved to the G4A3 with this guy over here. And while it does have a nice big central hump and it continues with some of that ergo feel, the thing that they were missing on this variant, at least for me, was some width. It's a little bit narrow. As I put my hand on it, you can see about, say, 20% of my hand and my palm is completely unaccounted for. And what that causes you to do is wrap a bit strangely on the mouse and actually put your hand at a little bit of an off position. Then next to that we have the Model O, which is an ambidextrous type design, but with only thumb buttons on the inside. And I found that the front thumb button was a little bit of a stretch compared to the Sensei 10, which has a slightly further set back. This does have a bit more of an inward outward kind of arc, and it is a bit better for narrower hands once again. Sensei 10 really is the best fit for me all around, and it has been for, well, quite a long time. This and the Kana V2 were both quite a lot broader. The Sensei 10 is longer, and as I've gotten older, I've begun to appreciate this more because obviously my hand size changed over time. So this really for me is the bread and butter, quintessential ambidextrous mouse. Then I got to the Razer Basilisk. And having gone from this broad, well, as you can see compared to the other guys, it is very, very broad, and I do have very broad palms and very big palms. I clap very well, so you should invite me to your event because trust, I'm very good for that. But the Basilisk over here was a lot narrower than that. And initially on the feel, I was like, it's not accounting for my hand correctly. Till I started to use it a little bit more. And what they've done critically compared to the older G4 and the MX518 is they've accounted a little bit better for that almost like missing space that's there. As you take up the mouse in the hand, it does feel like this kind of area is almost unaccounted for, but it's not, because it's actually hovering in kind of mid-air, and there's a bump on the back edge of the mouse over here that pushes really nicely into that piece of the palm as you take up the mouse. And as you use it, you see how I sort of shift back on it a little bit like that to get the most comfortable grip for my palm setup that I normally play with, because this was home, right? And still, I've got to say, it does still feel very good. But notice where my hand sits and this edge over here. They've done away with that, rather with a flat edge with a rubberized surface over there, which actually makes it easier to grip. I can grip it very easily with 2 fingers like that over there, and then the rest are free to do what they want. You can even fingertip the mouse somewhat because of that. And because of the way that this is set up, it just doesn't annoy the edge of your fingertip, which is so much better than I was expecting it to be. I was already attracted to it just for its ergo type shape, but they've done a very, very good job here. And people with, say, normal size palms will feel it when you put it into the hand. It's going to feel absolutely fantastic. All around, the design, the shape and everything, I think it's not completely unique. You know, the front especially gives me G502 feelings, but I think the total execution of the product is nicely, uniquely Razer, and the performance of this makes it a serious contender for those looking for maybe, you know, like, let's say, like a high-end casual, as it were, someone that likes to play on a high-end level and not be encumbered by their product, but also wants a little bit more crossover and a little bit more tunability. Having those 10+1 buttons and all of the macros and all of the reassignments and profiling that you can do on this mouse, it's going to let you bounce between games a lot quicker than, well, pretty much anything else that I've got you on the table, especially older stuff that just doesn't have any macro customization in it. It is also arguably the prettiest of the bunch, with this really nice LED ring lighting around the bottom over here. They've just done a really good job of making it look really good and play extremely well. All around, I got to give this a solid 9 out of 10. I would like to see a lightened version of this, perhaps DRGB it, get it as light as humanly possible, and then I think it'll be a serious contender for like one of the best FPS mice pretty much ever made, because that sensor performance is very, very good. Anywho, that is all I have for you in this review. If you have enjoyed it, please hit us up with a like and subscribe, and I will see you on the flip side.